Here we go. Welcome to episode 93 of the Georgie, or no, not the Georgie and Patty show, Building a U-Shaped Business with Georgie and Patty. I'm Georgie.
And I'm Patty.
And today we have a very exciting topic. Patty's going to walk us through how to actually stand above the noise with your content. And I think that's something that we, as entrepreneurs that are posting on social media, writing articles and doing YouTube videos, getting our blogs out there, is how do we actually get people to see what we're posting and see what we're writing? How do we kind of stand above the crowd so that people can find us, so that we can do the work that we're meant to do here in the world. So I'm excited for today's episode to see what you're going to share with us.
I'm excited to hear what I have to say too.
Yeah, and for anyone that's with us here on Facebook or on Zoom, if you guys resonate with wanting to know how to do that, or feel like, how I feel like I'm posting and all I'm getting is crickets, no one's really seeing it, but I'm putting so much effort into it, let us know. And then of course we'll always have our Q&A after. So woohoo!
Yes, we welcome questions. If you have them, ask away. I'm gonna share my screen. All right. So welcome, episode 93, Building a U-Shaped Business. We do this, by the way, every Wednesday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And we're here to talk about building a successful business based on your purpose, your values, your personality, U-shaped. And today's topic is how to stand out from the noise. And here's this topic, as many of the topics, was inspired by a client that I worked with a couple of years ago, who said this. This is stuck in my brain for a long time. There are 300 people in Vancouver alone who do what I do. How can I stand out? Or as a person that I met at a networking group once said, you can't swing a dead cat in here without hitting a coach. To which Jackson takes offense to. Not a nice way of putting it, but the sentiment is kind of the same. One of the wonderful things about being able to reach a worldwide audience is that for people like me who are situated in the upper left-hand corner of nowhere, we could still do business with people in populated areas where people live. The downside of it, of course, is that instead of just competing with the people in your neighborhood, you're now kind of competing with everybody in the world, or at least it feels that way. Another complaint that a lot of people have about creating content and putting stuff out there is that I'm getting crickets. Why bother? I keep doing all of this work, and let's face it, creating good quality content does take some time and some effort and takes some work. And the kind of content, we're going to talk about this today, that actually gets that kind of attention, it's not stuff that you can just kind of churn out quickly and just kind of throw out there. It does take some time and effort, and it can be really frustrating when you do that and nobody pays any attention to it at all. It's a real issue, especially for people who are just starting out with this. On the flip side, some people have managed to figure out how to get likes and engagement. Lots of people applauding, lots of people commenting, lots of people saying, wow, you go girl. But none of that actually kind of coming out the other side as being clients and collecting business. And you'd be surprised, I think, about how many people have a fair amount of popularity and quite a few people kind of hanging on what they have to say. A lot of attention and action around what they're doing, but it's not necessarily paying off for them in terms of clients. So it's kind of like two sides of the problem. So we're going to talk about why this happens and what you can do instead today. So let's start with this. Just a little bit of a reality check. The advice that Georgie and I share is intended to land with self-employed professionals or people with micro business used to be a term 20 years ago. I don't know if it's used anymore, but the company of 2 or 3 or 5, something like that, like tiny little companies or an independent person offering coaching or consulting or professional services of some sort. And a really good place to kind of ground yourself in when considering this is, how many clients do you actually need? We had a great answer to this from one of our clients the other day, which I thought was amazing. It was like, well, a lot, like 40. uh, like, we're talking about numbers. Like, for a lot of us, we know who our clients are. They have names and faces. We work with them. Like, we recognize them. We'd be able to pick them out of a crowd. They're individual people. So when you think about, okay, I need 40 clients or 12 or 100 or 200, something like that, we're not dealing with huge numbers here. You don't have to become internet famous in order to get yourself 40 clients. So that's just one of the kind of a touchstone for all of this stuff, is to just stay in mind. It's like, okay, what are my goals here? What do I really need? And how do I do this in a way that gets me what I need? So with that in mind, you don't actually need to stand out to everybody. You don't have to be the best, the most popular person in your industry. So, our idea of standing out is kind of relative. Um, Nobody knows who the hell I am. I don't have any big crowd of people, but I've been making a living at this business for 8 years now. It's like, you don't need a huge number of people to know who you are in order to have a thriving solo entrepreneurship. So what we want, like, we don't need you don't need 10,000 people on your email list to work with 20 clients a year, right? So you don't need to stand out to everybody, but what you want to do is really be a beacon for who your future clients are. Um, you need to let them know that you exist. They have to find you some way, and that's kind of our mission here with all of this, is how do we be the beacon for those people who are actually going to hire us, and forget everybody else. It's just like, shh, focus in on the people who are going to hire you next. So let's take a look at kind of the big picture of marketing and how it works. And I see this as concentric rings, concentric circles, beginning like on the outside. Social media, kind of broadcasting to the world in some way. It's kind of that outer ring. It's often the way that people hear about us for the very first time, through our own efforts. Referrals are great. Social media, like when we do our marketing, kind of starts out there. Coming in a layer from that, longer articles, longer videos, kind of like the video we're making right now, an hour long every week. But this kind of regular content, articles, videos, a little bit more in depth. Social media posts can be like really quick, really frequent. Articles, less frequent, more in depth. Coming in closer, your newsletter or your email list. These are people that have raised their hand and said, yeah, you know what, I'm interested in what you have to say. They're moving in closer to you. Closer yet, when you have sales conversations with people, they're like, not only do I like what you have to say, but I'm interested in maybe potentially working with you. So there's that sales conversation. And then right in the middle, of course, is when they choose to work with you. Yay, clients, kind of in the middle there. So you can look at this as kind of being the big picture marketing and bringing people from the outside towards the inside. And when we talk about standing out, it's actually more important on the outside. Like, the standing out is kind of how you get the attention to begin with. As you move into inside, it's more important to keep their attention. So it's kind of like you get people to raise their hands and say, yes, I'm interested on the outside. And then as you draw them in, it's more about keeping their attention than standing out anymore. And so it's kind of an important way to look at it. I'm going to show you about that in a moment. So there's three ways there's many ways. There's three ways that we're going to talk about today about how to stand out. The first one being about being specific instead of general. What I've noticed is a lot of people kind of get this backwards. Um, but you want to be specific, not general. Specific is what stands out. The more general you try to make your message, um, the more it blends in, the more it doesn't get attention. Uh, the second thing you want to do is that you want to start above the fog. No idea what that means. I'll show you in a moment. But you want to connect with clients where they're at, not where you're at. And to focus on high quality and the right aspects of what that high quality actually is. So let's look at this idea of being specific, not general. So when we look at this kind of bigger picture of what the marketing looks like, uh, you can be fairly general in the middle, like in that client's place. You can work with a number of different types of clients, solve a number of different problems, offer a number of different services and modalities. You can be reasonably general in the work that you do with people. And this is one of those little bits of marketing advice that we get. You have to niche down, you have to choose a specific target market, you have to specialize in doing only one thing. My experience with real life clients is that a lot of very successful people completely break all of those rules, and they work with different kinds of clients, different age ranges, different genders, different occupations. They offer different services, they treat different problems. That's a very doable thing, is to keep that kind of thing kind of general. But when you move out to the outer ring, like in the social media, if you want to attract attention there, you want to be specific. And the lovely thing is that you can be specific. You can send little messages out intended for one of your future clients, not all of them. So for example, let's say, your business in general is about relationship coaching, helping people have better relationships, all kinds of relationships with all kinds of people. Might be business relationships, might be personal relationships, might be family relationships, but it's about relationships. So that's kind of the general thing. So when you're looking at posting stuff on social media or writing articles, you want to be more specific than that, because when you talk about general stuff, it starts to be, blah, blah, blah communication, and people don't notice that. So perhaps you could write an article about how to reach out to an estranged child. Does every client in your relationship coaching have estranged children? No. Could some of them? Absolutely. So you can choose really specific topics for social media or for articles. And if some people ignore them, that's fine. But if I've got a problem that I have an estranged child and I want to fix that relationship, this thing is going to draw me like a magnet. And that's what you're wanting to do. Like when you look at social media, when you look at the noise, all of this incoming, some of that stuff stands out and grabs you, and most of it does not. Most of it, like, we don't even see it. If it's not reasonably interesting to us, we don't even see it. But if we see something that's named, that's something that we are currently concerned with, it's currently top of mind, it's like, boom, it's like, I need to see that. Um, Another example, let's say you do some kind of general health and wellness kind of coaching, naturopathic work, or some kind of mixed modality. It's MMA, mixed modality, something. But let's say you do some kind of general sort of health and wellness coaching. A specific article or post that you could put out would be something like 3 things you can do to avoid catching colds. Maybe something that's seasonal, something very specific. And if if you're, maybe you could even be more specific. 3 things you could do to avoid catching colds from your children who just brought them home from school. Like that could be something like, there's, on mom's mind, I don't want to get this, but something really specific like that. A couple of weeks ago, I did something to pulled a muscle in my back or something like that. I was in a lot of pain, and you can bet that specific things on how to stretch out a sore back, what to do with a sore back or whatever, really would catch my attention. But if people talk about pain in general, I'm not, like, I'm tuned out. I'm like, I have this specific problem and this is what I'm looking for. So specificity on the outside, all lead in to something general in the middle. And a lot of people get stuck trying to be specific about their business as a whole, especially when they're too new to even know. Like at some point, you may want to specialize. You may want to say, you know what, I'm going to be the world's leading expert in avoiding catching colds. But you don't have to turn your whole business into this thing, but you can kind of test out. You can test out ideas, experiment by throwing things out in the specific area. Another example, coaching women in transition. The number of clients that I've had that have said, yeah, this is my very, very specific business is coaching women in transition. This is not a term that clients tend to use unless they happen to be fellow coaches. But people don't generally think about themselves as being in transition. I mean, maybe some do, but for the most part, there's something specific that they're transitioning about. So how to bounce back from divorce. This is a transition. This is very specific, and this is going to catch the eye of people that are looking for that. And that can very much lead back into a business that's about coaching, and it's about change, and it's about transition. So specific instead of general, because specific is what catches our attention. And I encourage you, when you look, when you kind of look at social media next time you're feeling distracted by Facebook or Twitter or something, look for what catches your attention. And what doesn't. And you may notice some of this. Also look at, for sponsored ads and things like that, where you can tell it's an advertising, what's getting the attention, and the engagement, and what's getting the crickets. And you'll notice some specific versus general stuff happening there, unless the person in question happens to be a well-known celebrity. And those guys can get away with anything on their marketing. Once enough people know you, it doesn't actually matter what you say on your website anymore. They know you because you're you. But for those of us who are nobodies, we need to follow some of this advice. Thing number 2, start above the fog when you're talking to people. This is your potential client's world as they see it. It's like two islands, and they're stuck on this rainy one with the unhappy face, where they've got problems and they've got symptoms and they've got things going on that they don't like and that they want to change. And when they want to get over there to that sunny island where everyone smiles and life is wonderful, and they meet their goals and they achieve their aspirations, they find the right partner, they get the right career and job, their health is wonderful, all of that. And in this nasty before picture island, this is a situation as your future client sees it. It's the symptoms they're experiencing, it's their own diagnosis, not yours. It's what they think is going on. They might not be right. It's the thoughts they have about it, it's the feelings they have about it, it's the solutions they're aware of. It's not the solutions they're not aware of. It's the information that they have, and it's limited. Over in the happy island, that's where they want to be. These are the results they want, the outcomes they want, their bigger aspirations for their life, their small goals, their short range goals, their long range goals, all of that stuff. This is all of the stuff that we'll call your future client zone of awareness. They're here, they want to go there. And it's so important that we remember that they do not have all of the information that we have. And so you want your marketing to start in their zone of awareness. And too often, those of us who offer expertise, we want to talk about our stuff, and they have no clue that it's relevant. So we want to start above the fog. And this is fog. This is one of the first things that you know that they don't know, is that what they're seeing as water and two islands, you are seeing as fog, and you can see through the fog. And underneath that fog are your zone of awareness, which is so much bigger, because this is what you do. You're an expert in the services that you provide in the industry that you work in. So you know so much more about this than they do. It's part of why they hire you. So underneath the fog are your insights, your expertise, your assessment of the situation, your recognition that what the client thinks is incorrect, that sort of thing. And also your offers, you know how to solve their problems, but they don't. That's part of why they hire you. So this is your zone of awareness. So when this comes to marketing and standing out and getting attention, one of the biggest mistakes people make is that they talk from their zone of awareness instead of their future client's zone of awareness. Um, so when you're talking about things that your clients don't know about, they're not paying attention, even though it's the thing that they need. So when this comes to marketing, this is not, you can't talk about the stuff that's in your awareness. You can educate for sure. It just means that when you're putting something together, whatever you call it, whatever the topic is or the title is, that needs to start in their zone of awareness in order to get their attention. Otherwise, it's like it's invisible. But as long as you name it something that's related to what they to what they're looking for, what they care about, um, then you can, within the article, within the post, within the video, you can show some illumination. You can do that. It's not like you're just limited to only talking about their perspective, but you have to meet them there. And if you notice in the examples that I gave, you know, how to bounce back from divorce is that's a topic that somebody would recognize. It's like, here's my situation. I'm unhappy because of divorce. I want to be happy. That person might not even say that they're in transition or even realize that they are actually in a transition. That might be new information for them. They might never have thought about it in that way. But if you keep the topic into the divorce or the back pain or the relationship with the child or whatever is going on with them, that'll catch their attention and give you an opportunity to draw them into your world and educate them a bit. So these are the kinds of things that you want to focus on in terms of topics and titles. What is your, what are the problems as your clients see it? What are the results, the outcomes? What's the after story as your clients see it? Then the final thing that we're going to talk about here in terms of how to stand out is to focus on uh, developing high quality stuff. If we're talking about standing out in, a sea of noise, adding to the noise with some fluffy stuff that sounds like what everyone else is saying isn't all that helpful. But if you'll notice, it's like, what do you share? What do you send to a person? Where do you, consider, an article that you have sent to somebody or something that you've shared because you thought it was so great. There's going to be a high quality to that. It's going to be, relevant. It's going to be insightful. There's going to be something about it that makes you say, wow, this is really good. I want more people to see it. Or, wow, this is really good. I want to subscribe. I want to hear more. I want to sign up. I want to work with somebody. It's about that high quality. One of the things that I think we often forget is the very first piece of information or content that people hear from us forms their first impression. And in a sea of a lot of choices, it's really easy to just kind of bounce out. It's like, yeah, this is fluff, this is light, this is not what I'm looking for. This is clickbait. It promised something really good and didn't deliver it. It's like, boom, people are gone. So high quality, offering high quality stuff is what keeps people kind of staying around in your orbit. So a guiding question, this is a really good thought experiment for you, something maybe for you to journal about or to meditate on, is what would make your emails, your blog, your videos, your social media feed so good that people wouldn't want to miss it? How could you deliver that kind of quality? Because remember, we're not after 400,000 people. We want 40. What can you create that would rock those 40 people's worlds? Uh, so here's my VEN on this. It's three things that people think about in terms of quality. The production quality, how good's the writing, how good's the lighting, how good's the audio, how nice is the design, that kind of element. Often people are wanting kind of clever and catchy words. It's the sparkly stuff on the outside, but there's an element of production quality. In some ways, there's a little bit of love added to it, right? Um, then there's this relevancy to our future clients. You want to be relevant to your future clients. This comes from speaking above the fog to them. But being engaging, being interesting, useful, inspiring, helpful, entertaining from their perspective, this is the kind of thing that will have people pay attention, share it. It's relevant. Um, and also, and this is the third piece here, is that whatever you put out needs to be effective for your marketing. So it showcases your expertise, shows that you know what you're talking about in a way that's related to the services that you offer. Uh, if you offer wellness kind of services, you're going to be talking about wellness kinds of things. If you go really off script and start talking about, I don't know, how to win a car race or something like that, you might be engaging and interesting, and it may be the best video ever, but if it's not related to what you actually offer, it's not really going to serve your marketing. So when you want something that's going to serve your marketing, and it's going to connect the valuable information that you're sharing with what you do and invite people to take the next step. What comes next? Subscribe, sign up, come to my free webinar, book in a call, check out my website, tell them to do something else, that takes the next step. So when we look at this little map and you're wondering, why is that section green? Why is that other section pink? Here's why. This kind of gray area here is the cricket zone. A lot of people wind up in the cricket zone. Creating something that's really high quality. This is mostly skipping the relevance to the future client. Clients don't care. It doesn't matter how beautiful the video is, does not matter how stunning the copy is, or the fact that it really showcases you as an amazing expert. It's going to be ignored because it's not relevant to clients and they won't even see it. This happens when you go below the fog. Sometimes wonderful content can be saved by putting a title on it that goes above the fog, making it relevant. It's like, hey, you need to look at this, right? This pink piece here is friend zone. This is where you got something that's relevant, may or may not be beautiful, but it's relevant, it's engaging, it's interesting, useful, inspiring. A lot of people sharing their origin story. This was me when I was sleeping on my friend's couch and I had no money and I was hooked on drugs and I turned my life around, and they get a lot of engagement, a lot of "you go girl," but it doesn't necessarily relate to what they offer, but it gets a lot of attention. Motivational quotes, inspirational quotes, this kind of stuff. People like it. They like it and they want to share it and it's relevant to them. They find it interesting and inspiring, but it doesn't have anything in it that is effective for the marketing. So it might look like it's doing something, but it doesn't actually end up in clients. So the little green part here is kind of like the sales zone area. This is the stuff that's actually going to further your marketing, relevant to your clients, and has an effective marketing message. And the production quality doesn't have to be this high. This is the permission slip to let you off the hook that you can create a video without worrying about a lot of editing, and without getting the lighting or the background amazing, keeping your cat out of the screen or whatever. Like that still, like, you notice the, it's kind of, it's a nice to have. If you have it, it's brilliant. But if you don't have it, don't let that stop you, because if you can be relevant and engaging and interesting for your future clients and showcase your expertise, that is going to help you with your marketing, even if the production isn't all that high. This is the stuff, write about stuff that people care about and make sure it's related to your business in some way, and then you're in that green zone there. So I will end this presentation with our quote of the day. Why fit in if you were born to stand out? By the inspirational guru, Dr. Seuss, and a permission slip back to that small number of clients is to focus on your right people and to ignore everyone else. And I think this is maybe the most important piece of this, is that when you're wanting to stand out, be that beacon, you're shining that beacon for some very specific people, also known as your future clients. And don't worry about everybody else, and don't worry about having to attract huge numbers or anything else. Just focus on serving your right people, and that will help you stand out a great deal. And here we go.
Try to find my unmute button. So good. So good. Like I literally, it's funny because I hear you talk about this a lot, obviously. You know,
Might be my topic.
And I go through though, but literally I'm like I'm writing down like tons of notes, and I'm like, oh, all of a sudden I just came up with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 headline things that might be above the fog, right? Like it's, so I think these things take some time and some practice with it too. And often we get really excited about one thing that we're going to put out there, and this is going to be it. I know this is going to be the one, and nothing, or 5 people respond, or 1 person responds. And then we kind of feel deflated. And it's that, okay, no, we just keep going. We keep going. We keep going. Like I think about this with our show, right? Like we're at 93 episodes. It would have been really easy to quit at, I don't know, 20 or 5 or 10. 92, you know, it would have been really easy to quit at 92. And it's like, man, you know, our likes or our this or our that aren't where you think. And then all of a sudden you get something that hits, that people are like, oh, there's some interest here. Let's keep going. We have a comment on Facebook that someone says, I just got another new client last night because I did exactly what you just said. and it happens, and it takes time. We have another comment here in the chat where finally someone said it's okay to be a generalist, even if you start with an introductory, easy to understand service.
It's it's surprising. it surprised me a little bit, you know, when I realized that a lot of, like, you know, the more successful clients that I've worked with tended to be a little on the generalist side. I would look at what they're doing and I'm like, huh, you're not doing what all the gurus tell you that you need to do to be successful, and yet you are. What gives? What's this about, right? And it's, yeah.
Well, it is that ability, I think, to be both, like you said today, right? Like you can pick a specific thing that you talk about, but you still can do so many different things. But it's, where are the pieces that people like, yeah, I really care about colds. My kid's going to school right now. I can't get sick. The cold thing, wow, I had a lot of people respond to the cold thing. Great. Let me see what else I can do there.
Yeah.
And then I can try this piece and this piece and this piece that all fit with what I do.
Yeah, and that's just it. And you know, one of the best places to get these topics from are the people you're actually talking to. It's like nothing like client sessions, client questions, sales conversations that you have, and people bring up, you know, when you ask them, it's like, okay, so what's going on? How can I help? And they tell you, and then it's like, oh, that's a very specific thing. But you know, if there's one person out there that's worried about catching the colds, there's a bunch of other ones that are worried about that. So there's the idea. And these things are easier to write too. Like, this is the other thing. It's easier to answer one specific question than it is, like, it's easier. I'm going to presume that it's easier for a wellness practitioner to answer a question. What is the best way to stop from catching a cold, even though you live with someone who's infected, right? And they'd probably have, oh, you need to take these supplements and make sure you wash your hands, don't let them breathe on you, wear a mask, whatever. And it'd be like, oh, quick. It's faster to write that than to say, oh, what's some general advice for how everybody can stay healthy? All of a sudden, then you're like, holy crap, this is a book. This is a series of books. Like, there's too much. It's hard.
Yes. I think this is a good point also, that someone just commented here, is that it's easy to get distracted by engaging with others in our industry who share our frustrations, not our own prospective clients.
I once had a bookkeeper or an accountant, I can't remember what they were, bookkeeper, accountant, or something like that, say um, that they would be embarrassed to put out a post reminding people about tax season on LinkedIn because their colleagues would laugh at them. And I think that like this is like really, it's really true. And often too, a lot of the engagement that we get are from our colleagues, from the people that we took our coaching certification from. Like if you're still involved in a community or a group where you got your training, or you're in a professional organization with a bunch of other people who do what you do, if you write about your concerns in that industry or write for them or share your expertise in that below the fog way, it's above their fog. They're not going to hire you, but they'll respond to you, and you'll get engagement from those people who already know, like, and trust you, and they will tell you that your article is fantastic, that they'd never considered that problem from that specific angle, but it kind of goes over the head of our potential clients, and sometimes we forget how little they know. It's like if we've been doing our work for a long time, it's like that's the water we swim in. And sometimes like it can be just really enlightening to have a talk with a regular person, and they're like, it's like in my case, it's like, so what exactly is marketing? People don't necessarily know. I had a client tell me that. It was like, Patty, you know what? When you say marketing, a lot of people just think that's advertising. They don't actually know what marketing is.
So true. So
You know?
true. I
And
think this
people don't
is
know what coaching is.
exactly. And I think
And
this is
different coaches
where
have different definitions of what coaching is.
it's so true. This is where the power comes in the conversation with the either our future clients or just ordinary people, and not just within our own industry and the people who get it. Because I think that is where we find, the questions that then can become topics for the things that we're writing or the things that we're doing in our work. And we can be reminded of, oh, right, that just seems so like normal or like air to me, but I forget that that's a thing for people. And it makes the work so much easier. It makes creating your content so much easier, when we can get good at that skill and just remembering to listen to the real people that would actually buy, what we have to offer.
Yep. It's, I'm just thinking too about, when we write for our colleagues, which is, it's a common approach to take. I find myself in that space myself, right? But when we think about, impressing our colleagues or writing something that they would approve of or something like that, we can also get into this place where we can feel kind of critical about what we're putting out.
Mhm.
There's this, more of a fear of judgment. I know for myself, I find that if I keep in mind one of my clients when I write something, and I'm writing it specifically to them based on a problem that they've surfaced with me, with a symptom that they're experiencing or a question that they have, and I just hold them in mind, and I write something that is designed to be super helpful to this one particular person, it's much easier, and it removes that. You can imagine that it's going to get a warm reception. You can imagine they're going to be like, wow, that really helped. That was really great. Um, Even, if you're in a situation where you answer a lot of questions via email, like you send an email response to people, it's like you could probably look through your sent folder and find a few potential articles in there or things that you could share, because you've shared that advice with one person. Why not share it with the other people that might be struggling with it? Like, this is like when we talk about quality, like this is quality. It's quality when you send a response to someone and they say, wow, thanks, that was amazing, that really helped, I took your advice and it worked. It's like, yeah, how about share that with some other people?
I think that that's such a really good tip, and it sounds like simple when you say it, but I think for a lot of us, when we sit down to write something and then we actually go to put it out into, the public where people will see it, I think when you start to get that kind of fear that's coming up or that resistance to post it, if you stop and think, oh, and this is, I've heard you say this before, what am I actually afraid of? And it's actually, we're afraid of the people who are our critics, maybe, or like you say, maybe there are other people in our industry, but we're not actually focused on, this is actually for my future client, or even better, having that specific client in mind. And it's like, I'm actually writing this for them. I know what their response will be. And I think it changes the lens that we start to see things through. Like, we're not really seeing it through that lens of insecurity or judgment anymore. We're seeing it through that lens of actually being helpful and being of service. And that makes it easier to overcome that fear of putting information out there. Because I think that can be a big, big obstacle for people, especially when we're getting started, and just accepting too that it might suck a little bit in the beginning, and that's okay too. Like, we're doing this to continually get better, and the only way we're going to get better at it and be more effective is if we actually do it.
And you know what? If you're actually being of service to people, it's like that high kind of the the way we judge ourselves for whether or not something has quality often comes from comparing to other people and looking at that kind of production quality. The number of people have said, like, I can't write. And it's like, I can't write is coming from this position of, I can't write well enough to satisfy my high school English teacher who kept scrawling red marks over my essays, right? Like they're carrying that forward. And they have it in mind, like, that good writing is, we get an A on the English paper. Good writing is like those authors who write professionally or whatever. Quality is kind of in the eye of the beholder. It's like, if you can give somebody advice that's going to get them out of pain, and you scratch it on the back of a napkin with a really crappy kind of a drawing or something like that, but you get your point across, that is high quality content in their estimation. It's like, might have been awkward about how you said it, but I get it and it helps. I'm sometimes surprised because every once in a while I'll get somebody that kind of drops into my calendar based on some piece of content that I've put out. And I remember this one person contacted me and was just raving about this video that I created, and I had forgotten that I had even left it on YouTube, kind of thing. And I went and looked at it, and it was cringeworthy bad as far as I was concerned. But it was appealing enough for her that she contacted me and hired me because she liked what I had to say. She found the information helpful, even though, like, the quality was not high. And it's the kind of thing where I would be really tempted to delete. It was like, I saw it, I'm like, I got to get rid of this. And I'm like, are you crazy, Patty? You just made money from that. It's like, leave it be. She found, like, the judge of quality isn't you. It's the people that it lands with.
Yeah, and I think if even if it's only one person that found value in that and reached out, it was worth it. It was worth it. Like,
and that's just it. And you never know. It's like you never know. It's like, you create the content, you put it out there, create the content, put it out there. And it's one of these things that's really easy to put off because it does take, it takes time and effort to do it well. There is that, if you have concerns about visibility, if it feels uncomfortable, put yourself out there, which it does for me, by the way.
mm-hmm.
This has been a huge block of mine, is coming out of hiding, being visible, putting stuff out there. It's like, it's got this kind of emotional cost, it's got a time cost. It's so easy to put it off and not do it, because it doesn't often pay off immediately either. Sometimes it does, often it doesn't. And then it creates nice little surprises for you. So it's like, planting seeds, and then they start to sprout. And it's like, oh, it's like that network connection I made 5 years ago has come around, or the video I made 2 years ago has gotten some attention. It's gotten me a client. You don't know, like, it's not as immediate as, for Georgie's perspective, picking up the phone and calling people. It doesn't have that immediate thing, so it's really easy to put it off.
Exactly.
Really easy to put it off.
I think it's part of that falling in love with the process piece, right? We do the process, and we're not super attached to the outcome of what's going to happen with it, but we keep doing it, and we keep doing it, and we keep doing it.
Yeah. And there's so many additional benefits from doing this. Like doing this show every week, it's like my thinking is improved. I've gotten smarter. I've gotten better at explaining what I do. I have Coolio diagrams with happy face islands on them and stuff like that. It's like I never would have had that stuff if I wasn't pushed to every week come up with something to say or find my thinking.
So true. So true.
Like there are side benefits for doing this beyond just the marketing angle.
Well, you get better yourself. I think we get clarity in what is our messaging, what is the work that we want to do, how can we do it better, where and often it's been a surprise sometimes, I think, with what we think are, oh yeah, here's what they really want, and then someone will make a comment and we'll be like, that? All right, let's go. I hadn't thought about it in that way or that perspective. And okay. And if we weren't doing this every week, we would miss out on that for sure.
Yeah.
So it's, and I think they say for us, because it's live, I know that's why I do it. I know if this was recorded, it wouldn't happen, but because it's live.
Yeah, that's a production quality thing, right?
Exactly.
It's like, how can we be helpful? How can we be relevant? Focus on that. Otherwise, it's like, oh, every time I try and record a video by myself where I'm not going live, I keep starting over because I'm like, oh, I could say that better.
Exactly.
Oh, it's an it's an ah.
Yes. Yes.
Somebody is pointing out in the chat that the concentric circle diagram that I shared today came out of a question from someone in our Momentum group coaching program who asked a specific question about, what does this big picture marketing look like? And I shared the idea, but I didn't have the diagram. So it's like, today I've got a diagram. So I've got something better now to show people when that question comes up. So
yeah, so cool. I love it. Now you have something coming up on Friday. Did you want to share that?
I do. I have a webinar coming up Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. I will be recording it. I will be turning it into an ebook, and it is an overview of how to package and sell your expertise, and it's for people who offer work that has a lot of substance and depth to it and is difficult to summarize in a 30-second kind of a sound bit. So there's information about that on my website, pattyk.com. And I also have a group coaching program coming up focused on content marketing. Get your butt in the seat every week to do that, to create some kind of content and to share it with the world. So I've got that coming up, and
so many goodies. So many goodies,
and we'll be back here next week for Georgie's turn to talk.
Yes. And so next week I'm going to talk about, it's going to be a lot about the power of questions. Like I think for many of us, we can sometimes be in conversations with people and we're like, why aren't they hearing me? Why isn't this going so well? How can I build that connection with the person that I'm talking to? I know I can help them, and why can't they hear me? Why don't they see it? So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that, some things you can do to sort of improve those conversations and help make you actually a better communicator with the people that you meet, whether it's just in the actual sales conversation, or how do we get people even to that point of wanting to have a conversation with us so that we can share some ideas and actually help them. So that's going to be my topic next week, to give you some little tips and tricks for that, so that the people part of this thing works maybe a little bit better.
That's so awesome. will have my notepad and pen ready. It's one of the things that I love doing this show with Georgie's. When Georgie talks, I listen, I learn stuff. So I'm looking
So
forward to
good.
next week's show.
Excellent. I'm just gonna. There's one more comment here in the chat thing that says, "So glad to know that you have a fear of being visible, Patty. This is one of my core issues and the focus of my own belief work right now. Thank you for sharing." Yeah, being visible is hard. Like is scary. You know, it's like, oh my gosh. Like um, there's power in knowing that we have this time set up, and I think this is how we hack our own system to be more, to overcome that fear of being visible. I know it works for me anyway, knowing that this button is being hit at 9:30 every Wednesday. It is happening. I know I'm going to show up because I said I was going to show up. So that that fear, it's a way to overcome it, but it certainly doesn't mean it's not there. It's like, okay, here we go, and it's just like, okay, but we're doing it. But yeah, it's not easy.
No, and and it can feel like I know for me, it feels like I'm walking into a large room filled with people and kind of trying to shout to get attention. And it feels, very uncomfortable. But the reality is, like, even though it might look that way, the reality is I'm just having a quiet communication with a small group of people who actually want to hear what I have to say. What I have to say is not getting in front of a huge group of people. It's a small group. Um, and that, like, this, and I keep coming down and around to that, is about the smallness of it. It makes it a little less intimidating for those of us who are um, more introverted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so for those of you that do show up every week, we thank you.
Yes.
We really, really, really appreciate it, because it does make it easier for us to do this, knowing that there are people here who want to hear what we have to say.
Yeah.
So yeah. Excellent. Well, I think that's another Wednesday.
That's another Wednesday. We'll be back next week with episode 94.
So amazing.
It is so amazing. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you here next time. Same bad time.
Same bad channel.
I know.
Bye.